It's weekly review time here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Besbris. Thanks so much, as always, for tuning in as we go through the biggest stories, the ads, the drops, the holds, the watch lists, the stashes, the injury replacement board. That's a big one. From week 11, and again, I maintain, I don't care if Yahoo calls it week 10. This is the 11th week of the season, and therefore it's the 11th week of real time. I'm Dan Besbris. Find me on Twitter at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Old Man Squad on Blue Sky, Old Man Squad Fantasy over on Instagram. And please take a moment to like our trade deadline live show. Pre-like that sucker. It's available now. You can bookmark it. It's going to be a wingding. We're at 342 pre-likes right now. I want to get up to 1,000. And the show is in a month and 2 days. So we do have a lot of time left to try to get in there. But it's all part of the algorithm. We got to trick YouTube into thinking that I'm the biggest show going. And the way we do that is by making sure that everybody's bookmarked it. So please go bookmark it and subscribe and all that good stuff. If you are relatively new to the proceedings, this is the way things go. This is just throwing a page up there. It's a week 11 big review. It's our last holiday week for a while. You can enjoy it. You can don't. I don't actually care. We'll hopefully get back to normal scheduling this coming week. I think I'm going to look at my family calendar while I'm doing the podcast. Do I have anything going on this coming week that's out of the norm? Kids are back to school. Yeah, nothing really. So we should be able to get back to normal this coming week after NBA Cup weeks, Christmas week, New Year's week, all that good stuff. We start on this show with the injury replacement board because it knocks out the largest chunk of names, and then you guys can see where everything else falls. The injury replacement board is indeed organized slightly in order of how I like them. I put little up carrots next to the name for folks that are watching on YouTube. Instead of hamburgers, basically it's my burger board. If I like a guy a lot, I'll put 3 up carrots. Pretty good amount, that's 2. A little bit 1, and then no up carrots. Those are the guys that in my mind are kind of like a 50-50 proposition. Goga Batadze, look, you guys have misinterpreted this one a lot. The only reason he's still on this board is because we haven't seen whether or not he's going to be good when the Magic get healthy. It's looking more and more like the Magic may never get healthy. Jalen Suggs went down, so he's just the latest to throw his name on that board. But, again, until further notice, you just obviously keep rolling with Goga. Ayo Dosunmu and Larry Nance were 2 up carrot guys, but they're both out right now, so you can jump over them. Russell Westbrook is a 2 up carrot with Aaron Gordon out. I think he's probably a playable guy even when Aaron Gordon comes back. But one thing we know for sure is that he's a triple-double threat when he's starting, which is what's happening right now. Keon Ellis is a double up carrot with Keegan Murray out. Mid-30s minutes for Keegan is basically what we want out of Case and Wallace, but his minutes aren't there every time. Lots of steals, lots of blocks, some 3-pointers, not a whole lot else, but that's still very fantasy translatable. My hope is that this is the start of Keon Ellis getting minutes, but we don't know because this did happen when Keegan Murray went down, so we don't really have any evidence to suggest that it's going to happen when Keegan comes back. I went to the Lakers game last night. My voice is a little bit tired, so you guys will forgive me here if I take extra sips of water on today's show. Sorry in advance. KCP, I think, is a play for Orlando with all the guys out. I mean, without Jalen Suggs, there's nobody left. It's KCP and then Cole Anthony and Tristan Da Silva, who are later on this same list. But Caldwell Pope is just a little bit safer because he kind of has that 3-pointers and steals backdrop to whatever else goes on. Royce O'Neal is out, but if he happens to come back with Bradley Beal and Grayson Allen hurt, he would be a play. Cam Whitmore was a play. Jabari Smith Jr. is out for a couple of months. Amen Thompson suspended. Tari Eason still dealing with that knee issue. We'll see. I mean, Thompson should be back, so then that probably wipes Whitmore down to a 0 carrot or not even on the board. But he was a 1 carrot last night, so we'll just keep him there for now. Mason Plumlee is a 1 carrot guy. Yusuf Nurkic suspended for 1 more game, and then Plumlee, you can toss him off the list. Klay Thompson is a 1 carrot guy as long as Luka is out. Luka and Kyrie were both out, but it didn't change things all that much for him. Quentin Grimes is a 1 carat guy with both stars out. I think he's a 0 carat guy when only Luka, is on the shelf. I feel the same way, by the way, about Spencer Dinwiddie. I'm bringing him back down a peg. Those guys, Grimes has been the more efficient one, which was always kind of the expectation. The hope was that Dinwiddie would be more of a lightning in a bottle guy, but so far it's been a bottle with, a couple of leaves in it. Malik Beasley looks like a really nice injury fill-in for Jaden Ivey, who's likely out for the year. So I'm going to put him on this board for now. Beasley will potentially end up as sort of like a retroactive ads name, because if a guy's out for the entire season, it seems a little bit dumb to have him on an injury replacement, or the guy behind him on an injury replacement board, because the other guy's not coming back. And yes, there's a chance that Ivey's back for like the last 4 games of the year, but at this point, you probably just put him as out by default. And so Beasley, and you guys might watch me do this in real time. I do this on these shows every once in a while. I'll probably throw Beasley on just the ads board, but I also wanted to highlight the fact that it's because Jaden Ivey went down. So we'll put him in 2 places. Grady Dick with RJ Barrett out. As soon as RJ comes back, Grady Dick to me is a drop. Scottie Pippen Jr. with John Morant out is a 1-up carat. We're still in the 1-up carats, and I already mentioned Spencer Dinwiddie. Luke Kennard moved onto this board. I didn't think he was going to do a whole lot, but he's actually been a solid Ja replacement the last 2 ball games. I'm a little bit nervous, I'll admit. But for now, we'll put him as a 1 carat guy. Dennis Schroeder looks like he should have a 1 game, a chance to pop off a little bit, because Steph is resting for the Warriors game. I think that's tonight. Is he resting tonight or is he resting tomorrow? I already forget. Warriors are on a 5-7 that starts tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies. Steph is sitting out one half of these back-to-backs, and I had it in front of me, and then I misplaced the note. So it's one of the two. And whichever one that is, Schroeder's going to be the guy. Now we're down into the coin flip guys. Benedict Mathurin is a coin flip. Kelly Oubre's out, but if he comes back, he'd be a coin flip, provided Embiid is in. If Embiid is out, you move Oubre up to a 1 carat guy. Vasilije Micic been terrible with LaMelo out, so coin flip. Tristan Da Silva has actually been pretty good when the Magic have been out everybody, so maybe he deserves 1 carat, but I'm going to leave him on the coin flip list because there just isn't much in the way of a portfolio to point to and say, oh yeah, like we can count on Tristan Da Silva to do this every day. Both Champennies. Julian and Justin Champagny, because Jeremy Sochan is out for the Spurs and Bilal Coulibaly is out for the Wizards. we got that's kind of fun, I guess. Where was Sochan born? Polish American. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. And then, obviously, Coulibaly. Sochan was born in Oklahoma. I didn't know that. Learned something new on the podcast today. This is me reading some about Jeremy Sochan's childhood while live on a podcast. Let's not do that anymore. So we got both Champagnes in for a short stretch. Sam Hauser had an awful, awful game his last time out. But if Jaylen Brown sits again, he's a pretty decent 3-point streamer usually. Keon Johnson would be a play if Cam Thomas has to sit out. It sounds like there's been some soreness in his hamstring, which is a different part of the body. And then Gershon Yabusele, if Embiid has to miss a game, would be the last injury replacement there. Let's take a quick commercial break, and then we'll rumble along to the ads, everybody's favorite part of the show. Here's the ads board. I put Keon Ellis with a question mark. So he's not really an ad, but he's also kind of an ad. He's right on the borderline for me as kind of like a speculative guy. The reason he's here is because you pick him up to replace Keegan Murray. That's an easy decision. And I wanted to highlight the fact that he might be a guy that stays on your team even after Keegan comes back. I'll admit, I don't know. All season long, we've been wondering, will Keon Ellis get any more playing time? And so far, the answer has been no. Teens a lot of the time. Even low to mid-20s isn't quite enough for him. But now, all of a sudden, he's in the 30s with Murray out. I don't think he sticks in the 30s. My best guess is that he falls back into the 20s when Keegan returns. I hope I'm wrong about that. And the nice way to sort of buttress against a possible misguess on my end is to just add him. And then when Keegan comes back, just play him for an extra game. Roto, you can bench him if you want. Head-to-head, it's not going to hurt you to play Keon Ellis if he only gets 22 minutes in a game. He'll probably get you a steal and a block and a three-pointer, and you can go, okay, well, that wasn't great, and I can drop him now. But at least he didn't hurt you in that game. Basically, this is my way of saying don't pre-drop on Keon. A couple of new names on the board. Scoot Henderson, who was a speculative ad last week. We'll go ahead and put him in there as a field goal turnover punt ad. And Andrew Nembhard is a punt threes ad who's surfaced over the last little bit over a week, but we'll call it conservative. I don't want to give myself extra credit on this one, so we'll just call it first time on the board. Although technically, we did talk about him a bunch last week on this show. Those are the two new names. This was kind of the ebb. You know, we talk about the ebb and the flow of the fantasy basketball season. Sometimes you have a week where you get like 3 or 4 new rest of season possibilities. This is not one of those weeks. This is one of those weeks where we kind of had none, where you really had like Keon Ellis is the maybe, and he's an injury replacement guy anyway. And then you had Scoot and Nembhard that were kind of at the end of last week. So really over the last like 4 or 5 days, there hasn't been a rest of season name that's popped up. So these are the closest two guys. They have punt issues, but I put them on the board just so that we can talk about them. Trayce Jackson-Davis, I know he had a bad ball game last time out, but that was against Joel Embiid. I think he's a firm add a second time, so give him his second star. Donte DiVincenzo gets his second star. Malcolm Brogdon is one that I want to talk about for just a second. He was on this board last week as an injury replacement guy for Kyle Kuzma. Kuz came back on Monday, and Brogdon has continued to be solid. So this is one of those ones where the guy was already someone that was on our rosters because he was a one burger or higher injury guy. And as the team's getting healthy, he continues to put up solid but not great fantasy stats. Free throw shooting has actually been, interestingly, one of the best attributes for Brogdon so far. But he gets some assists, he gets some points, a couple of rebounds, not that many steals, and not that many threes. He's, frankly, a lot like Andrew Nembhard in his fantasy appeal, but probably a little bit, I would say, safer on the day-to-day and way less safe from an injury standpoint. So those two guys kind of fall into the same general bucket. You could probably call Brogdon more of a punt threes guy anyway. Who was I say I was going to add to this list? I already forgot. So let's put Brogdon in as threes. Let's add... Oh, it was Beasley, right? That was Malik Beasley. That was what we were going to do in real time. Malik Beasley's going on this list, even though he's an injury play technically, but the guy he's replacing is out for the entire season, so throw him in there as well. Russell Westbrook is on the board for a third time. Now he's getting a double bump because of the injury to Aaron Gordon. Obviously much better when you're punting free throws. Malik Monk, this is the 4th week he's been on there. Again, he was an injury play that just stuck around. And Zach Edey, his 4th week on there, after a brief hiatus because of his own concussion. Now he's back on there for a 4th time. Make sure he didn't get dropped because of the concussion. Here's some updates on guys that were on this list last week. Ben Simmons had been added. I had him as a 2-week-in-a-row ad, and then the Nets traded for D'Angelo Russell, so they replaced their point guard. Ben Simmons only had value because he was the point guard. Technically, he's still going to be playing some point, but they're not going to need him to do it nearly as much. I think you can drop him. So, bye-bye. Situation changed. That's okay. Jeremy Sochan is a hold. He was... Did I take him off the list on the previous page? Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Sochan is a 1. So he was an ad when he was coming back from injury, and now he's injured again. So we'll just keep him on the holds board. I'll put him back on the ads board as soon as it looks like he's coming back. But I didn't want to give him a second star because this isn't really the week to add him. But I do think he should be on rosters anyway. And then I left him on here just because he's been sort of fine lately, and that's Yves Missi, who... hasn't been good enough lately to be like, oh, yeah, this is a guy who's just dunking on everyone. I think last 2 weeks he's like top 120, but that's certainly good enough to hold. The problem has been he's getting to the foul line more than we'd want him to, like 3 times a game, and he's a 60%er. So please stop shooting free throws, Missi. That's my humble request. This is a fun page, by the way. Now, we don't have to go through all these names, but these are the rest of season names we've had on this show as ads boards guides who've been on the ads board for 4 consecutive weeks or more, and the week that they started. So the beginning of the year is Christian Braun, Dyson Daniels, and Bilal Coulibaly, although we all drafted Dyson Daniels, so don't kid yourselves on that one. Week 2, Alex Sarr became an active stash. Week 3, Tari Eason, who unfortunately is IL bound these days. PJ Washington was also week 3 because that was when he came back from a knee sprain. Shaedon Sharpe was a punt field goal guy in week 3. I need to reorganize these and make them chronological. DeAndre Hunter was an ad at the beginning of the year, and then he went down for almost a month, and then he was a re-ad on week 5. He's been a guy to hold. Andrew Wiggins, basically the same kind of story. Ad at the beginning of the year, got hurt, re-added later. And then we had all those guys coming back from injury in week 7. Mark Williams, Herb Jones, Chris Middleton, and Yves Missi is when he moved into a better role. Not surprisingly, when Herb Jones came back and DeJounte Murray came back, that was all in that same week 7, week 8 range. So a lot of really cool names that we've been able to go through on this show, on this weekly format. Not Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, just the weekly shows. These are the ones that have been highlighted. Which, by the way, good opportunity to remind you guys to please hit the like button on today's podcast and subscribe to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Again, find me on social at Dan Bespris, and please pre-like that trade deadline show. That's a really big one over the next 30-some-odd days. We want that sucker exploding. Where the hell did I put this document? There it is. Here's the holds board. Naz Reid finally moved back up from the I'm worried board because he's played better the last 2 or 3 ball games. Bobby Portis has been on a pretty furious run that started when Giannis and Dame were out and has continued since they came back, but we do know it's going to cool off soon, so he's actually more of a sell high guy, as per the show that we put out earlier this morning. DeAndre Hunter is a hold. He had one very, very, very bad game in Los Angeles against the Lakers. He'll be okay. PJ Washington hurt his knee, came back, had a bad shooting game, but I'm not worried about him. The usage is nice, and he actually over the course of this year has been quite good, typically when one of the stars is out. We already talked about Yves Missi. Jonas Valanciunas had a couple of good games and then a bad one, and that's kind of the way it's going to be for him. He's a hold, but we've talked about JV quite a lot this year. He's a very low upside hold. Points, sort of. Rebounds, yeah. Field goal percent, free throw percent, both positives for him, but just no consistency of playing time. The only way that JV moves into a consistently positive impact role is if Alex Sarr has to miss a week or 2. And so far, to Sarr's credit, I think he's only missed like 1 or 2 games this year. Impressive on the health side. For the young dude who, I mean, the thought sometimes is that these young guys are going to get beat up a little bit, but he's hanging in there. Yusuf Nurkic is a hold. He was playing okay prior to his suspension. He's annoying, and I don't like rostering him, but he should be on rosters. Same thing with Jeremy Sochan, who I forgot to put a little asterisk next to his names because he's got to match up with what we did earlier in the program. There we go. Time to worry, guys. 3 names that are repeat names. Clint Capella, who's been very bad lately after a warm run. That's the way it's going to be with him and Onyeka Okongwu. They're going to alternate who's warm, and that's going to be the guy who gets a little bit extra playing time. Dennis Schroeder is a time to worry guy, but he did play better in the Warriors' last game, and we've got the Steph Curry absence here coming up in the Warriors 5 and 7, so this is not the time to cut yet. Daniel Gafford's not really a guy you can cut. He's technically a 10th rounder right now, but a lot of that is because he jumped up the board when Derek Lively was out. Lively is back. Try to get whatever you can for Gafford. I've said this on about 22 shows now, so we're not going to do it again. And the new name on the worry board is Grady Dick, who I believe is about to be a drop as soon as RJ Barrett comes back. The Raptors are 1 man away, once again, from having their, if you want to sort of call it like a big 3. Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley have not really played together this year. When they do, Grady Dick is cooked. And the cut list. I took all the names off of this. So for a few weeks, I had a laundry list of names that I had been sort of repeating. Why does this look off center? It isn't off center. My brain is off center. But the names are definitely not aligned on the screen, and I don't know why. It was time to just take all the names off that you had seen 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. So we're basically starting like a brand new cut board for this week. And those names are Jabari Smith Jr. and Ben Simmons. Sadly, for Jabari Smith, a player rolling along at filler level was barely rosterable anyway. He had a couple of good stretches that pushed him up from 180 to 120, settling at 12 points, 6.5 boards on low field goal percent. The only reason you were holding on Smith was the hope that his field goal percent would tick up by 3 or 4. Well, now it doesn't really have a chance to, because the soonest he'll be back is presumably after the All-Star break. And the general rule of thumb, not to get too far down a side road here, is you're not stashing top 125 guys for more than like a week. Or if at all, frankly. The guys that you're willing to stash for a month and a half or 2 months, which is the possibility on the timeline for Jabari Smith Jr., those are like top 75 or better. I might hold the top 75 guy for a month. I might even hold the top 100 guy for 3 or 4 weeks, depending on what stats they bring me. But like 6 to 8 weeks, that guy better be 75, 50 or better. And Jabari Smith Jr. is not those things. So sadly, you can send him off to the waiver wire. I don't think anybody's picking him up. And he's just going to be cluttering your IL. Now, if you have a ton of IL spots, I guess that's sort of a different beast. But like thinking about some of the leagues that I'm in with 1 or 2, I'm going to need those spots for somebody else. Somebody good. Ben Simmons is not that guy. His minutes were down immediately with D'Angelo Russell and Cam Thomas both playing in the Nets' last ball game. And I think that's the plan, because there was just no way his body was going to hold up to 30 minutes a game all season long. We were adding him as long as he was playing 30 minutes, but it doesn't look like that's going to be a thing. So, bye-bye. Watch list. This is one of my favorite lists because it's always guys that I'm like hoping something will happen with, and every once in a while it does. The watch list today is 6 names long. Lonzo Ball is a repeat offender on here. He's the only one, and he might frankly just be on the watch list every week from now until the end of the season. The 5 new names are Onyeka Okongwu, because Larry Nance Jr. is out for at least a couple of weeks, meaning there's really no challenge to the backup center minutes. Meaning, if Clint Capella keeps playing the way he has been lately, which is like molasses, Okongwu's been a small, but not completely insignificant beneficiary of Capella sucking. Okongwu himself goes through long stretches where he's up and down, but over his last 3 ball games, he's averaging 13 and 7 with a steal and a block on very good field goal percent. If he could do that long term, that's 22 minutes he's been able to post those numbers. If he can get that up to 24 minutes and they split the centers right down the middle, he would be a top 100 guy. So Okongwu was on the watch list. He has a shot to be an ad. And yes, maybe some of it is injury related. Yeah, Jalen Johnson missing a game or 2, that helped as well. It sort of forced the Hawks to go a little bit bigger. But it could also pivot on a dime. If Clint Capella starts playing better and Okongwu goes through a little bit of a lull himself, then it just flips back the other way, and that's why he's on the watch list and not the ads board. Bub Carrington is on the watch list. I have very, very low hopes that this is going to amount to anything in the very near term, so he's kind of like the last watch list names if I was going to organize them. Terry Rozier is on my watch list because all season I've just been hoping he would do something consistent, and he hasn't. He's playing 30 minutes a game this year, but he's averaging just 15 points and 2 assists. That's simply not going to get it done. The hope, of course, is that finally now, with Jimmy Butler basically being removed from the team, he's suspended for 7 games, and I'm sure they're going to try to move him between now and then. Easier said than done for a dude with a $50 million player option. Maybe this is the time that Spoelstra walks over to Rozier and is like, look, man, I need you to go do some stuff, because like Tyler Hero can't do it all himself or he's going to fall apart. But what are the odds of that? I don't know, 10, 12%. Not enough for me to make a pre-ad. Watch list. Asar Thompson is on the watch list. So many of you guys have come to me and been like, Dan, you're too low. He's going to explode. I'm like, I'm down on Asar Thompson. Not as a human or a player, but just as a can he possibly fit in what Detroit's trying to do right now? They need spacing more than ever with Jaden Ivey out. They have Cade Cunningham to create, and just like it's got to be an open floor around him. Jalen Duren is the most you can clog up a lane because he's a rebounding phenom and a putback jam specialist. But like, first of all, Ausar Thompson has missed his last 5 free throws in a row. That's a problem all by itself. He's going to dunk when he's near the rim, but he's not a field goal percent guy because he's also going to do other things. He's going to take other shots, for better or worse. So, I mean, the hope is that he could be a positive field goal percent guy, but so far in his career, he's been kind of a neutral in that department. He rebounds relatively well, and his minutes probably tick up a little bit, but he doesn't pass as well as his brother. The steals and the rebounds are the only things you're looking at thinking these could be a positive, and everything else is likely to be a medium to large size negative. That ain't enough. If, however, Tobias Harris goes down, that to me changes the equation considerably. But he ain't down. Tobias is there. So Ausar Thompson very much should remain on wires, and you guys can just keep watch listing him. Obi Toppin is the last name on the watch list. I just don't think there are enough minutes for him long term. He's been, like, lately at least, pretty good in 20 minutes a ball game. His last 10 games, he's actually inside the top 100 at 12, 5, and 2, 2 threes, and a steal on great field goal percent. I just don't see how that keeps up. How can he keep taking 8 shots in 19 minutes? Can he keep making 60% of them? Probably not. I did pick him up in a league that's a little more volume-based because it does seem like he's going to go take a few shots. But just traditional 9-cat, to me, Toppin profiles more as a pretty good schedule stream kind of guy. The stream while hot, bench while cold board got a new name on it, and that name is Dylan Brooks, who went into a little bit of a warm spell. I think he'll probably come out of it. The other names on this one, just for those that haven't watched one of these shows before, Brooks, Toppin, Jaden McDaniels, KCP, who's above that right now because his whole team is hurt. Santi Aldama, who's just been good all year. So, sometimes you stream while hot for 30 ball games. He's out right now, though. Jordan Clarkson, Lou Dort, Buddy Hield, Karis LeVert, and Malik Beasley are the other ones. Beasley also getting a little bit of a bump up right now because even when he's cold, he's still probably going to get 12 to 15 shots in the ball game, and you figure it'll balance out to a little bit better than that. So I feel like I should probably put a little asterisk next to Beasley because he's been on the ads board, and then KCP. A lot of these guys need little other tags right now because there's always something going on, but we'll just leave it on Beasley. And finally, the active stashes board. This is kind of the work in progress page of these weekly shows because, as a teaser, coming up in this month of January, we're going to be sitting down with analysts from across the fantasy space to get their favorite second half breakout targets, guys that might move into bigger roles post-trade deadline, shutdowns, things of that nature. And we'll add those names to this board among the ones that I'm going to do myself. So my own names on this one, my favorite is obviously Alex Sarr. We've been talking about him for 9 weeks on this program. Denny Avdia would be my second choice. He's been sitting right in the top 140, just like Sarr, all season long. But he's basically a Jeremy Grant injury away from moving well above that. And then Noah Clowney is the distant third place guy because it just doesn't look like his fantasy game is evolving the right way. It seems like it's devolving to mostly points and not a whole lot else. But it also feels like as this season progresses, if Cam Johnson gets moved, if anything happens to Nick Claxton, there's a pathway for Clowney to get to do more little by little as the season goes. And certainly one would assume the Nets kind of want to see what they have in him. I just don't know that the 9 category upside is there. So he's sort of like the distant third favorite. These are organized actually in the opposite, written on the page here, at least in kind of the opposite order of how I would stash them. And the reason this is important is because they're active stashes. These are guys that you're getting stuff out of while you wait on more. As you guys might recall, earlier this year, I had someone like a Donovan Clingan because DeAndre Ayton was out. Clingan made awesome sense as an active stash, but I just don't see a way to sit on a player doing basically nothing. The funny thing is, too, if you guys have followed me over the last 6-7 years doing these podcasts, you know I am probably the, well, I don't know that because I don't actually listen to or read everybody else's stuff on the planet. I've been over the years, maybe rephrase that. I've been one of the biggest haters of stashing in fantasy because my take is you want to win now. It's one of the reasons I don't play in dynasty leagues because I don't have the patience to sit through a rebuild. I'm in a keeper league and I had a 1-year rebuild. I was like, that's the longest I'm ever going to let this thing go. Ever. And that's the thing about stashing. Like, some dudes advocate stashing from the first week of the season, and you're just sitting on a guy that's taken a deuce on your team for 3.5 months that might not even pan out. You need to use the first 2 to 3 months of the season to build up a lead. If it's roto, it's a per game lead. If it's head to head, it's a where are you in the standings lead. You can't afford to have guys that are doing like poop level efforts on your club that's holding you back unless there's a guarantee of something down the line. I used to have pretty good battles, I think, philosophically, with my good buddy Jonas Nader, who we missed terribly in the fantasy space, about this type of thing, because Jonas was one of the biggest stash guys around. His hit rate was better than most, so that was helpful. But in my eyes, we were using up valuable roster spots that we could be churning and burning, whether it's streaming on the head-to-head side or picking up injury replacement guys in Roto that are better than your 10th or 11th best player. Right now, for instance, like Russell Westbrook, Keon Ellis, those guys as pickups lately are better than your 10th round pick. There's almost no question in my mind. I don't need to see your team. 99 of 100 of you, I'm right when I say that. There's one of you out there that's listening going, my 10th rounder was blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, you win. But most of you, Keon Ellis as a pickup right now is better than that guy. So I want that roster slot. I want that available. However, there are these types of players, the guys that I'm referring to as an active stash this year. I don't think you should have inactive stashes anymore unless it's like a guy that's hurt that's a very good basketball player. That's different. That's a stash. An injured stash is different than a we hope stash. I am firmly anti we hope stash. I would love, now this is the thing, someone like a Robert Williams, when he had an IL tag last week or whatever it was, he was actually a reasonable injured stash because you're like, well, maybe he'll get moved before he gets healthy. Once they get healthy, you can't, like, if you leave him on your IL, you can't make other roster moves, so that's just a no-go. And you can't sit on that type of guy. So that's why guys like Sar, who's playing, and he's not technically good enough to start every day, 130, 140, 150 range. Send him with Denny Avdia unless you have the right punts going. For both of those guys, the right punts obviously help a lot. If you don't have those punts, you could make an argument to have them anyway because they have a bright future. Within the confines of this year, there's a lot of ways that they could do more. Jonas Valanciunas gets moved on one side. Kyle Kuzma gets moved on that side. For Portland, Jeremy Grant gets moved. DeAndre Ayton gets shut down. Robert Williams gets moved. Shaedon Sharpe gets hurt. Anthony Simons gets traded. There's 1,000 different ways that these guys can do more, but they're doing something already. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is your Week 11 in review edition of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Besbris at DanBesbris on Twitter. Old Man Squad on Blue Sky, Old Man Squad Fantasy on Instagram. Again, please do hit that pre-like button on our trade deadline live show that's in the show description and at our YouTube page. It's all I think I said it as the featured video, so you guys will have it pop up for you anyway. What am I missing? Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment if you have some thoughts. I'm trying to reply still to every single YouTube comment here on this first season of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. That's it. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with a Week 12 preview show. It's a super normal week. Again, I love these ones because streaming is really fun and easy, and there's like some back-to-backs mixed in, and there's some 5 and 7s mixed in. This week was a really super easy one to stream in, and we maxed out games. Like I think I was in a dead heat with my opponent in games played before I started streaming, and now I'm up like 7. It's a good one. Thanks for watching again, everybody. I'll see you guys soon. I'm Dan. I'm out.